So the low was like 39.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't like that? I like that. Yesterday the low was like 19.
Some rookie numbers. You can bump them numbers up.
It was just 27. Oh, we lied.
I told you.
Oh,
I
you
told you.
didn't tell
Yes,
me.
I
You
did.
didn't tell me. You didn't
I
tell
told
me.
you you got to stop playing that
Tell
song.
me
We was going live.
You didn't tell me you were live.
Say you was going live.
Man, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Oh, share this. Share this. Okay.
Share this live.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that we were. The mic was hot.
Okay. Also, I thought. Did you read the immigration? The chapter
no,
about
I did
immigration?
not. No, I
Okay.
did not.
Never mind. I know who read it. It's a secret.
I really like the format of this book, where they would sort of present the problem, talk about possible reforms, and basically point out how those reforms didn't work. Point out cases where they did try this, and this is how it's working now, and this is how it didn't work, and then they would go to alternatives and what we could do, or what's starting now, and what's about to happen. Is there anything you read in the alternative section that you thought of where that really should be happening more?
Well, let's see. Since I read the chapter I read, the War on Drugs chapter, the reforms. One of the things that he spoke about was that some of the war on drugs. He talked about drug courts and how people try to use drug courts as a way of reformation. People try to use drug courts as a way of reformation, and he spoke about the ways that that did help in some instances, but also the ways that in other instances that it wasn't very helpful. He talked about how people who suffer from addiction issues in some cities where they have these drug courts, because of how the court system is set up, that the only way to get into treatment centers is basically to be arrested by the police, go to court, and then to be sentenced to some type of a treatment center, as opposed to somebody who may be off the street and they want to go get help. The treatment center doesn't have any room for them. They're full for them. In the book Locking Up Our Own that I read, the author speaks about how he worked in a public defender's office, and they would try a lot of times to try to get as a sentencing treatment a lot. And one of the things that they would always get is that it wasn't any room at the treatment centers. And he said him in the public defender's office, it would always be a joke that for some reason it's never room in treatment centers, but it's always enough room in jails. And so, to that point, it just sort of goes to the idea that this system isn't really set up in a manner to treat people and to help people and to try to rid our society of these issues. Honestly, it's set up in a manner to maintain the status quo, to perpetuate these issues. He speaks about because it was the War on Drug chapter. He speaks about how many cities how many city police departments and governments are incentivized to pursue the war on drugs because of finances, and how much money and how lucrative the war on drugs has been for police departments. And so I think that's another one of the things that stood out to me is as far as solutions is a lot of times he spoke about how finances, and Michelle Alexander spoke on this too, but how the finances and the financial implications sort of hinder some of these things, because you would almost have to lose money to do some of these things initially. And so for me, that was saying this sort of similar to some of the things Michelle Alexander spoke on. But and then I think also one of the solutions, which is very different than a practical policy solution, was him speaking about the change in the consciousness of people, and the change in people's beliefs, and the change in what people's thoughts are. And each one of these chapters, the people that are spoken about or talked about, they have been stigmatized and criminalized and dehumanized, whether it's from unhoused folks, sex work, even us in doing protesting. When they talk about political policing, I don't think it was until I started doing this that I realized that people have an issue with protesters. Like, that's a thing that people don't like. I've 28 years of my life, I never, had any type of issue with people protest. I never thought to myself, I don't like protesters or I'm against protesting. And so just seeing how much propaganda has led to each of these sets of things that police are involved in dealing with being decriminalized and dehumanized and stigmatized to the point that when we end up with these culminations of people being killed or people being wrongfully imprisoned, nobody cares. People don't care as much, because people don't acknowledge the humanity of these people. And I think that not to, and I'll get this back to you after this, but not to take us to veer too far off, but I think that sort of leads us into the book, They Can't Kill Us All. I feel like parts of the new Jim Crow sort of lead to the end of policing. And also I think that in the end of policing, in each one of these, it speaks about, in the school, policing in school, it speaks about a police officer who chased a kid from a school after a fight. The kid hid in a shed. He jumps out the shed. The police officer shoots the gun. We protest. It's a pizza. You want some pizza? It's free pizza over here too. Yeah. Come get this pizza. It's an extra pizza. It's free pizza. Yeah. Get it. We give you a business card. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. We are protesting for that. Yeah. No, all of us. Yeah, we're all.
He's protesting
for fellas. Yeah. Fellas. But yeah, so I think that leads us into the book They Can't Kill Us All, because just like these light poles here, for each one person that's on these light poles is 5,000 people who were traumatized and dealt with microaggressions that led to whichever police officer killed them feeling as if they would be vindicated in killing them. Police officers, on a daily basis make decisions in which, even though they are in the wrong in some of their decision making, they are told that it's okay. They're told that because of the severity of their job, that if in a split second they make the wrong decision, it's okay, it's understandable. They have a hard job, And so I think that mind state and that criminalization and that dehumanization and that stigmatization is what leads us to the things that take place and that They Can't Kill Us All. We gotta get a thing to slide it on.
Or just another mic.
Yeah, another mic.
You touched briefly on this, and I didn't read this chapter, and I think Terry ended up reading this chapter. But police in schools. We've through our discussions and through police at your schools, we've had different conversations about different things that happen with the police at your schools. Yeah. In high school, what type of? You want to talk a little bit about that? Different type of things the police did.
Well, let me preface it by saying this, and I think until I read this, again, certain things, my vantage point has changed. So I never thought about the fact that police shouldn't be in schools or what police in school look like. But I went to private school from kindergarten to 6th grade. There were no police in any of the hallways. I can't even think about picturing my hallways and with police officers. There weren't fights breaking out in the hallway. People weren't getting jumped in the hallway all the time. So it wasn't as if the lack of a police presence led to some type of chaos or it's not the best terminology, but inmates running the asylum type of a thing. That wasn't what was going on without the police. In my opinion, to the contrary, the teachers got more respect without the police being there. Because the teachers were the end all be all. And a lot of things dealt. Dialogue fixed a lot of issues before it ever got to physical altercations. But however, I went to Lincoln Middle School from 7th grade and 8th grade, and then I went to high school in Jefferson, and it was multiple police officers on every hallway. It was not surprising at all for a fight to break out, or even maybe a shoving match to break out, and police officers be dispersed there, and the police officers slam people on the ground or tackle people. Or I've seen a police officer in high school, slam a kid into like a vending machine. These were all things that were, a normal occurrence. You knew that if you got into a fight in middle school and in high school, if it happened on school grounds, that if it didn't end by the time the police came, that the police would find a way to end it themselves. And so for me, that was a very different reality, but because of how normal it was, because nobody else thought that it was out of the ordinary, I didn't think too much of it, and it just became a normal thing. Also in there, they spoke about, I don't know if it was this book or another book that I had read, or the new Jim Crow, but they spoke about school lockdowns and doing lockdowns in schools. And I remember being in the 7th grade, the first time that a school lockdown happened, and I was thinking that it was being done for our safety. I remember being in the class and the teacher saying it's a lockdown and going and locking the doors. And I remember thinking like, oh, somebody might have a gun, somebody finna, people might be coming to shoot the school up. And next thing you know, you look out the hallways and, it's a bunch of police officers. They got police dogs. They go into lockers, opening everybody's lockers up. And, in the new Jim Crow book, they spoke about how nobody got arrested. But I had a friend that I was really close to that ended up, I had a friend who I was really close to who ended up going to juvenile. I remember before we had went to school, he came to my mom's apartment. Me and him were talking, and he pulled out this big thing of this little bag of weed or whatever. And he was selling weed. I feel like I should also say that his living circumstances were vastly different than what my living circumstances were, even though we lived a block away from each other. We were both raised by single mothers. He was Mexican, I was black. Neither one of us knew our fathers, but I had the benefit of I had the benefit where, even though my mom wasn't around a lot, from going to private schools and from having, the culture in my life was just, a very specific way in which it didn't lead to me having access to drugs or lead to me having access to alternative ways of making money. I used to sell bootleg CDs to make money. It's like $5. If I would have been able to sell weed, and it would have been, somebody would have approached it to me and had. Where I stand at right now, I'm not opposed to the concept of somebody selling weed. So at 29, I know that, if somebody would have been 15 or 16, it probably would have been the wise thing to be doing, but it wouldn't have been something that would have been against my moral beliefs. And so I can see myself being in that position where, it's not a lot of money at the house. It's not a lot of opportunities at the house. And so I'm trying to find extra ways to make ends meet. And so that was what he was doing. He was selling weed to try to make a couple extra dollars, So he took the weed to school that day, and I remember the school went on lockdown. It was a lockdown. They brought the dogs. I never heard about what happened, and then I went to get on the bus. He wasn't on the bus. Went to school the next day, and they told me, he had been arrested, that they had searched a locker, a girl's locker, and there was weed in there. And they were going to arrest the girl, but he came and said that it was his weed because that's his locker he was using, and, he was in juvie, and for the rest of the time that I knew him, he was in and out of the system. It was never a time where he had any kind of stability. He was the first person who I wrote letters to, in jail. He was in jail, and my uncle was overseas in Iraq, and I remember writing letters to both of them, And so, to me, I don't think that's what you do with a young man when he's, making a mistake. I wouldn't want my son to go to juvie for selling weed. I'd rather people who actually care about him and who want him to do things differently have conversations and have dialogues and and give him structure that can help him. If are you selling weed because you need extra money, what can we do to try to get you some extra money to get you a job, to show you alternative ways of living instead of selling drugs, because as it stood, when he got out, he went back to selling weed. It's not like he got out of jail and like he came home and all of a sudden his mom was had hit the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, had hit the lottery. He still was in those same circumstances. He still had those same needs, and so he returned back to what it was that landed him there. So. But by that point in time, by the time that young man becomes 18, he's been institutionalized. He's okay with the concept of going in and out of jail. It's a business risk. You know what I'm saying? It's not so much as a life risk for him anymore. It's not something that I remember when we got arrested. I had been arrested before, so it didn't really mess. It didn't mess. The process was a lot different. But just them bringing the handcuffs and them the concept of me being arrested did not instill any type of fear in me, because I have been arrested. I had known 80% of the friends I have been arrested, and so I wasn't opposed to this idea as if when I was going to kindergarten and 6th grade, if I would have continued with that life, I think that the idea of being arrested would have been very foreign to me, and it would have made me very nervous and made me very scared, as opposed to growing up where, I done been a Friday night, Saturday night, we go out, people got bail money to the side, you know what I'm saying?
this book touched briefly on the warrior mindset of cops, and it's gonna be a little preview into. And the new Jim Crow also touched a little bit on this. But what are your thoughts on the warrior mindset of cops? Okay, it's a little preview for the book we're gonna read on
Monday. This is a new concept to me as well. I hadn't really heard of some of these things. Even the militarization of the police department was something that I never had really thought about or considered or had any notions of. And I think as we've seeing on May 30th, the actual, seeing it in person, seeing the less lethal shotguns, the pepper spray, the helmets. When we would go to City Market and they would have some of those helmets on, I just thought it was the craziest thing. The mind, like that they had these helmets. So like, I remember playing sports. It was a long time ago, but. It's a feeling you get when you start putting on the equipment and you start getting ready and you're looking at yourself in the mirror and so I'm just can only it's how come stop it. It's a thing. Stop it. Yeah, stop it.
You had all the gear.
I was I had a rim protector. Even when I played park basketball, I would get my shoes on. I get the knee high socks. Pull the socks all the way up. I put a elbow thing on, or something. Yeah, and then I look in the mirror and I feel like I'm ready to go, and am I really good enough to be Allen Iverson? No, but that's how it feels, and so when I get out there, that's how I'm, playing, and it's leading to the team losing, and so I can only, imagine, what these police officers' mind states are when they put on helmets and then they get their batons and then they riding in the car and looking in the rearview mirror and whatever song that they listen to on the way there, all of these things that they're doing to get themselves hype when, in reality, they're supposed to be protecting and serving. In reality, they should be having less weaponry and looking less militant, to provide a air of safety and a feeling of comfortability for the people that they're supposed to be helping. And so for me, these last 10 months has been the first times that I've really considered and thought about, the militarization. The march that happened after May 30th, they brought a tank here. I remember seeing the pictures and thinking to myself, like, what year is this? Where am I living at? And so, and then even retroactively going back now when I watch documentaries about Ferguson and watch documentaries about LA in '92, and when I don't know if anybody's seen the movie Detroit at all, but I see those things now, and then it sort of felt like this foreign element. It's hard, until you see some of these things in person up close. It's hard to really understand the gravity of them. It's hard to. One of the officers who arrested me on the second week of the City Market arrest, as he was walking me to the bus, his hands was just shaking the whole time, just from like there's adrenaline rushing and whatever type of angst or whatever that he had, and in that moment, I felt unsafe, not because I thought I might do something that would lead him to harming me, but just from the fact that this man can't be into a stable mindset if he can't even hold my hands in handcuffs without his hands shaking and whatever emotions that he has going on taking control of him physically. And so to me, that's a very dangerous thing, especially with people who see black people or brown people or even poor people, or even somebody who lives in a lot of people who work in Rockford live in cities outside of Rockford, and it's a thing for cities to be stigmatized. People. I remember when we were in Rockford. Rockford Police Department. Kurt Wisenham. Me and him were having a conversation, and I was talking about something in Chicago, and he was like, "Oh, people always try to compare us to Chicago, or people be like, oh, Rockford's getting bad like Chicago, or oh, I got to get out of Rockford, Rockford's bad or whatever." And so I say that to say that then when you get people who are from Belvedere and they come and police in Rockford, just being in Rockford, they treat the people there differently because they have criminalized the people that's in Rockford. Every time any type of news story comes out or news report comes out, if you go into the comments, all you see is people who 9 times out of 10 are removed from these issues, but they are criminalizing Rockford as a whole and talking about how Rockford as a whole is so bad and Rockford as a whole, is so lost. And so what do you expect for police officers who are from Belvedere or from Boone or from Loves Park or from Rochelle, what do you expect their mind state to be once they come into Rockford and police in Rockford if they're getting all this, propaganda about how dangerous the city is? And so, yeah, that's a. Oh, damn.
Hold on, I want to ask you, toss it to you for a second. This book talked about different types of policing for crowd control and what was it?
Is that paper? Yeah.
Continue.
I should have told you.
Continue your question. Continue your question.
Let me go ahead and find it. I thought I had it. The paper, the Miami model.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Talk to me about
The last one.
that. The last video.
I related it back to Rockford. Like a lot of stuff back to Rockford was talking about national news. Remember that? Yeah, see, he remembers that.
Yeah, that happened. Yeah, it's recorded. It's filmed.
I think that video got deleted.
Oh,
The
what?
old video.
No, it didn't. What did he know it didn't? That was the last video we did. An old video.
Oh, it just shut off. It just went back to the home
Yeah,
screen.
it did.
So,
I didn't see it.
It's saved. Facebook saves the lives automatically, yes.
Okay.
That's why we
Oh,
use
you're
it.
a real one. Except for you banned my account.
Okay. This is the book. Do you have anything else you would like to add real quick as we wrap things up?
No.
Good.
Sure.
I made points.
You made points.
Points were made.
Points were made indeed. This is the book that we're going to be reading tomorrow. They Can't Kill Us All by Wesley Lowry. Again, breakfast every weekend, 9 a.m. to about noon. 9 a.m.
9 to noon.
9 to noon. We also have pizza here.
You got
right
pizza
now.
here, yeah. We're gonna have to do a video. We gotta
Yeah,
push
Come
this
get
pizza.
some.
Come get this pizza.
Get this pizza.
It's free.
Also, it's free. It is free. As is the breakfast. And,
Everything is free.
Uh,
Oh wait, no, everything is.
the
The
mic's
food
over
is
here.
free.
Most
Alright.
things.
Okay.
Okay, Saturday, 2 p.m. Saturday, 2 p.m. Going around, adding things to the memorials, refreshing them a little bit, and group discussions every day about every book we read. This is one for tomorrow, 5 p.m., 5-ish, around
5
5.
p.m., 5-ish to 7-ish.
5-ish. All right. Group discussions, day 182.
182.
182.
Day 2, ongoing teaching. Day 2.
April 2nd.
All right. Are you guys doing anything on Easter? Hoping to make it out there. We gonna be here. We got
We're gonna be here.
We're reading Our Prisons Obsolete by Angela Davis on Easter. Oh, damn it. We're reading Our Prisons Obsolete on Sunday by Angela Davis on Easter. So come out.
Okay. We also have breakfast.
Oh yeah, and we'll also have
Also have
breakfast.
breakfast.
Yes.
Until noon.
Okay.
And it's
Until
free. And it's
All right.
free.
All right.
But don't don't mention Jesus when you come. If Terry's here. That could be dangerous. Okay.
9 a.m. breakfast.
9 a.m. breakfast. Wait.